Hey there. Just to explain the title a little before we proceed, I decided to delete my old Silent Hill video and make a new one, because I looked at the old one and I thought, man, it felt way too sloppy to me. It wasn't that good. So I thought Silent Hill 2, being the amazing game that it is, it deserves a bit more digging into, if you know what I mean. I even have notes this time with me. So yeah, let's get down to it. Silent Hill 2 is the sequel to Konami's the first Silent Hill back in 1999. It came out on the PlayStation 1 console. And in 2001, Silent Hill 2 came out on the PlayStation 2. And the story is that the protagonist, whom you play as, James Sunderland, he lost his wife Mary in an accident. She died of an illness 3 years prior to the game's beginning. And James is just... he's pretty broken up about it, to say the least. But then one day she writes him a letter. It states that she's waiting for him in Silent Hill, in their special place. So James goes to Silent Hill to find out what the hell is going on, right? And that's when the game begins. It begins in a toilet, actually, so to speak, or in a restroom. Toilets, restroom, you get the idea. And James stands there, looks into the mirror, and he's like, Mary, could you really be in this town? Begins with a monologue. I think it's an excellent beginning to the game, I believe. And from there you take control of James, so to speak. And let me just consult my notes here. Yeah. So, might just get the gameplay and graphics out of the way first. The gameplay is pretty simple. You hold the R2 button here and you press X like this simultaneously to use your weapons, and you press only X to use something, etc., or pick up items or read stuff that you find in the world. And the combat system itself is pretty clunky, but I think it should be clunky and clumsy because, well, you play an average guy, just a regular man who has his own demons, so to speak, in here that he needs to, should we say, exercise. I believe, come to terms with what he's done and so forth. But we save that for later. Going in depth in that later. But the inventory system I like a lot. I think it's very simplistic and yet very. It's very. I don't know. I just love the inventory system. I think it's absolutely brilliant. You can access everything in your inventory just like it was. It's pretty much unchanged from the first game. The only difference in the sequel is that, well, obviously it looks nicer because it's a whole new graphics, another console altogether. So yeah, I guess I can't complain. I think the gameplay is pretty good, really, and it is from 2001. It's over 10 years old and doesn't feel like it. Not in the gameplay. I think that it's pretty solid gameplay in Silent Hill 2. And as for the graphics, I can't complain much about them either. Well, the obvious, if we were to nitpick and be very picky about it, so to speak, it would be the characters talk. Not with the in-game engine, just the lip syncing. Although the lip syncing is still very good, I find. But yeah, I'll give it a pass on that, just because it was released back in 2001 after all. So what can you expect from a game that old, huh? And Silent Hill is it is more like psychological horror, not like Resident Evil, but of course, if you watch this video, you probably already knew that. So what have I written here? Yeah. Well, the story has many layers, so to speak. It's deep. You can dig in it. You can dig very deep in the story, so to speak, because it's full of symbolism and hidden meanings and stuff like that, and different interpretations that from one player to another who has played the game. You know. So if I don't have that much to add on that, but well, let's talk about the characters, because characters, it is a very character-driven game, I feel, in my opinion. So James himself, he is an ordinary dude, basically, who lost his wife and is pretty torn up about it. And he is not. You'll notice that he is very unstable up here, very unstable, because you could see the whole game as this links actually to the story and layers and everything like that. You can see the whole. I see it like this, that everything that happens in the game, that James sees, that you the player sees, is basically James's own mind projecting these horrific monsters and the horrific things that happens in the game, and all the puzzles you need to solve. It's all part of James's own psyche, that tries to deny him or block him out from the truth about what really happened. And so what really happens, as you find out in the ending, turns out that Mary didn't really die 3 years ago. She has been in the hospital under these 3 years prior to the game, and but she was dead to James. She was dead to James because she denied him sex, and she was, among other things, and she was very very angry and bitter and all that, because she was dying after all. And James, and you find out that James was actually very, excuse me, fucking pop-up window, and you'll find out that James was very he really tried to help Mary, he really did, but I think that eventually he just shut it off, you know, like, well, fuck this, I don't think he lost the will. No, he lost the will to care for Mary and to try to help his wife, whom he loved very much. And you, one of the characters, a little girl named Laura. I'll be going in depth about her later. She gives James receives a letter from her when you are at the Lakeview Hotel in the final stages of the game, and Mary had written that James could seem very like sulky is not the right word, bitter perhaps, no, grumpy, I think that was the word. He could seem like grumpy and cranky and not be very talkative and not like that much. but underneath he's really a sweet person. And I think that had a huge part in why he did as he did with Mary, because it is, the ending scene is, man, it's so touching. Like, you see Mary lying in her bed, in the bedroom, is my guess, in their house, and James sits right next to her, like, and holds her hand like this, and she apologizes to him that she was so, that she behaved as she did during her whole stay in the hospital, and James just can't take it anymore. Take a note here. Mary had told James that she wanted to die. She wanted to die, but at the same time she wanted to die to be free of the pain and the suffering. But I don't think she was ready to leave in that way, in that respect. Not yet anyway. At least, after all, James and Mary only had a couple of years together or so, I believe. It was very short time, not even 5 years. I don't think they even had 5 years together. Man, that's insane. My God. Fucking fate, right? Cruel son of a bitch. Anyway, so James takes a pillow and smothers Mary in her bed, and then you see him carry her and go out of the room, out of the bedroom. And if you receive the in water ending, what happens after that is, you can pretty much guess, pretty accurately also, because you'll hear him open the trunk, and I think it sounds like he's heaving something in the trunk, or just opens it, and yeah, it sounds like he heaves something heavy in the trunk, in the car, and then slams it shut. And then he says, like I can't live without you, Mary, and then you hear him take off and heading into the water. So yeah, that pretty much covers this James, I believe, and Mary also, I think, yeah. And then we have Maria. That is an interesting character. The way I see it, I should probably talk about her as a person first. Maria is identical to Mary, except that she has different clothes, and she doesn't have the same hair. It's Mary. I believe Mary was a brunette, but while Maria is a blonde, but with red highlights here and there in her hair, and she has different. This hair, dude. Anyway, and she has different clothes than Mary also, and James first meets her at Rosewater Park, actually, and she decides to accompany James on his quest, so to speak, for the truth and answers and for finding Mary. So she does that, and then the gameplay wise, it turns like it's sort of like an escort mission, but not really, because you have no, Maria is she's just tagging along, you don't have like take Maria here and take Maria there, nothing like that. She's just along for the ride, I don't think, and since you run around in the open streets, all the monsters doesn't become a big problem, because you can easily run away from them. So actually, that whole thing, gameplay wise, I don't have any problems with it. I think it works perfectly, actually. And the way I see it is that Maria was was is a figment of James's imagination. Because keep in mind that the town of Silent Hill, it doesn't, all these monsters that you encounter, they aren't there at first. It's only when it's like the town calls certain people to it and they come there, and it's all deserted. It's like a ghost town basically, and it's just thick milky fog everywhere, and you can't see you can't see very much in any direction, I would say. And so yeah, the Maria, and as are all the monsters, I believe, at least, are all figments of James's imagination, because of the town. The town is like affecting James's psyche, because the town knows that James has done a terrible thing. He has done something wrong, and he needs to be punished. Or maybe it's because James himself believes he needs to be punished, but he doesn't have the shall we say strength of will to face what he has done just yet. And so he needs the town of Silent Hill to like go through a purgatory of sorts, to cleanse himself from all doubt, and then finally come to the realization, you know, that yeah, I did this. I need to take responsibility for my actions, you know. And the only things that I believe, at least, are real in the game, that isn't a part of James's imagination, is the other characters you meet. Well, except Maria, I suppose. Maria is probably the only character that you meet that isn't like a real person. That is just, she's just a figment, an image sprung from James's own mind because of Mary. What happened to her? And Maria is like, I believe, James's ideal image or something like that of Mary, because they are identical, just the hair and clothes are different. I don't really, but that is just a theory. With this game you can just speculate however much you want. No speculation or theory is more right or wrong than the other that some other people may have. So it's all up for discussion, debate. I love that stuff is great. So on to the next character then. Yeah. My God, how have I written here? Wait here. Let's just jump. Yeah, Angela. Angela. You meet Angela pretty early on, actually, in the cemetery. Just in the beginning of the game, when you go through the woods and you're on your way into the south Silent Hill, the south part of the Silent Hill town. There is a forest on the outskirt that you must go that forest path, so to speak, and there's a graveyard there in the forest, and it's all. And so you meet Angela there in the graveyard, and you notice right away that there is something very, and even about, going back on topic, even Maria, feels pretty, shall we say, it seems like you can't trust anybody. Everyone is ambiguous, you know. You don't really know. Something is unsettling about these characters, but yet you can't put your finger on what it is. And I believe Team Silent, the developers, Team Silent, they wrote that. The writers, they made it just, oh my God, it's fucking brilliant. I think it's brilliant, and it's just great the way it turned out. I truly feel it is just pure greatness and awesomeness of from the writers, and genius in a way. But yeah, let's go back to Angela. there are other characters. There are one more character actually that that has this dark past, except Angela and James. But in Angela's case, she was a victim of child abuse and rape during her whole childhood, I believe. Starting from a pretty young age. She must have been maybe 5-6 years old, and it was her dad that raped and molested her. Now that's fucking sick, people. Yeah, it is. So it ends with and she runs away from home several times, but her father, I think, always gets her back home and continues to abuse her and molest her and everything like that. So, you know, it's like enough is enough, you know. And so eventually she kills her father. You can actually find a page from the newspaper and later on in the game that mentions this specific event. The police have found a man, Orozco, which is Angela's last name. So you can only assume that it's her father, yeah. And he had been shot or something. I think she had shot him, something like that. And after that, then it becomes the same situation for Angela. I feel that both the thing that James, Angela, and Eddie, what those three have in common, is that they are all denying what they have been done, and they can't face the truth. They can't take the consequences, so to speak. But this is not necessarily a bad thing. I think I feel sympathy for them. Well, mostly Angela and James, but anyway. So that's the reason they all get drawn to Silent Hill. That's the reason for those three. And Angela, you meet Angela several times during the game, and I mean, that's this first time on the cemetery, and she says like, "I'm looking for my mama," and she sounds like you're like, "Whoa, what the hell?" She sounds weird. Well, that's because it was, I believe, a 40-year-old actress or so playing Angela, and she is supposed to be just 19 years old in the game. So having a 40-year-old play a 19-year-old, it was pretty effective. Simple stuff, but it just fucks with your mind so hard that you just, so to speak, that you just, something is just off. Something is just off, you know, with all of them. Consult here. Almost done. Yeah. So you meet her again in an apartment complex, and she just you see her. She's lying on the floor, and there's this big mirror along the entire wall, you know, like this. And she's lying there like with this knife and just looks at the knife. You enter the room. James enters the room, and she says, "Oh, it's you." And by then she has totally switched. She's totally switched track. You know, she's not. Suddenly she's no longer that fragile, innocent, or that fragile, spooked girl you met in the cemetery who's looking for a mama, you know? Suddenly she's dark and brooding and stuff like that, and when contemplating suicide. And then she switches again. So she switches back and forth between those two personalities. It's like, almost like she has a split personality. She's like a schizo. Because James he offers to take the knife from Angela, and she says like, yeah, sure. If I kept it, I wouldn't know what I would do to myself, she says. So we first think, yeah, okay, well, give me the knife then. And then just like, no! She gets all panicked and just backs away from James with the knife, and like looks like she's ready to defend herself, you know, like James is going to hit her or something. And then she just like, I'm sorry, like this, you know. And then she's back to that girl again. Well, you eventually get the knife because it is a major part in getting. It has to do with the endings, but yeah. So and I find, and this links to the music in the game, which I will talk about later on in the video. But I just have to mention. I can mention this right now. Angela's, should we say, death scene. I don't really know if she dies, but I guess you don't really see her die, but I guess she dies. It is in the final part of the game. You're at this, you're at Lakeview Hotel, and you enter the room. I believe it is you're in the basement, and you enter the door, and you're supposed to go up or something like that. You enter this room, and you see a burning stair like this, you know. The stairs just seems like the stairs go up for eternity, and it's fire all the way up, and paintings on the walls all the way up like this, just frames, or it's just paintings that has some sort of fleshy sack paper thing upon them. It just looks really disgusting. And you see Angela just standing there in the stairs. James enters, and then she's like this. Then she's this little girl. The girl personality has emerged yet again in that part, but she actually mistakes James for being her mother, and she like feels like his face like this, you know. And then you're not my mama, she gasps something, and she sounds genuinely surprised somehow. And James is just like, no, I'm not. And you as a player think, no, like this. It's all those mind fucks, love them. But anyway, so and then Angela, and this is, we can almost call it Angela's tragedy. And it is something that could happen to James himself if you get the right ending. But she basically says that she thinks that she deserves all the abuse and rape that she had endured because of her father. And my heart just like, oh, no, Angela, no. I just want to like hug her or something and say, no, you didn't, it'll be okay, like, you know. And James says, no, Angela, that's wrong. But she doesn't listen. And then she suddenly asks James to give her back the knife, and James refuses. And she, in this scene also, she switches back and forth between the girl personality and the brooding, troubled teenager personality. You know, like these two are like switching places constantly every time you see her. Then she just you see her walk up the stairs like this. James says, it's hot as hell in here. I'm sorry, I just think that line it sounds so funny when he says it. It's just, the voice actor just, it's hot as hell in here. Like, very neutral and shit. But, and then Angela says, you see it too. For me, it's always like this. And she walks away up the stairs. And, the music in that scene is just, oh my god, phenomenal. Believe me, I'll talk about the music later on. Eddie. Now Eddie Dombrowski, I think his last name is. You also meet him in the Woodside apartments for the first time. First time you meet him, he just sits like and pukes into a fucking toilet, you know. And yeah, so he's a kind of half fat, clumsy dude, you know, that you stumble upon. And that's in that scene where you meet when you meet Eddie. There is the dialogue in the scene enforces this idea that the town Silent Hill like adapts itself to whomever is in it. So, for example, James and Eddie both sees monsters, but since that scene is happening after you have met Pyramid Head, and I'll talk about him later also. You met Pyramid Head, and James asks Eddie, like, if he's friends with that red pyramid thing, and Eddie's like, red pyramid thing? Don't know what you're talking about, you know. And James is, and then Eddie mentions that he saw these freaking monsters, and he ran in the bathroom to hide himself because he was scared shitless. So it gets you thinking, huh? Well, how come he didn't see Pyramid Head? Sure, you could argue that, well, maybe he wasn't in the right part of the building, but still, to me, that scene enforces that whole idea that the town Silent Hill adapts itself after the person's mind and what the person has done, what he's seen, and based on his backgrounds, really, pretty much. And the reason Eddie was called to Silent Hill, so to speak, was he's very insecure. He's like he has a gun, and later on in the game he states that no one will mess with me again, you know, because he has his gun, and if someone messes with him, he will cap them, shoot them right in the head. And you find out that later on that he says to you that he killed a dog, and when the owner came back, because he probably had heard a shot, because I suppose Eddie shot the dog, he shot the owner in the fucking knee, in the kneecap. And probably the owner was a football player, judging by the lines in the scene. And the fact is, and this I find pretty cool actually, and pretty interesting also, is that one of the boss battles in Silent Hill 2 is Eddie. Yeah, Eddie is he becomes a boss battle, and that is when you are in the prisons. It's right before you get to the Lakeview Hotel, so it's in the beginning of the end of the game. My God, I'm getting well. Oh well. You meet him as a boss, and because James just says, "Eddie, have you gone nuts?" And after James says that, Eddie just he totally goes over the edge. You know, he becomes mad, really, and so you're forced to fight him. And then when you kill him, James goes to Eddie's corpse and says, "Eddie, are you okay?" And like, oh my God, I've killed a human being, you know. And that scene is that's all the little moments and all the little scenes in the game, throughout the game, reinforces this. It fills you. It just adds more and more mystery and ambiguity to everything, and it builds up these layers of the story and all the and everything like that so well, you know. It works beautifully actually. Yeah, and then there's the final character, supporting character, Laura. Laura is a little girl whom you meet outside the woodside apartments in the city in Silent Hill. You meet her. She sits like on a high wall, stone wall, you know, and then she teases James. Like, James asks her, "What's a little girl like you doing here anyway? You know, because there's monsters in the city, you know. Damn it!" And Laura just says, "Huh? Are you blind or something?" So, and again, it reinforces this whole thing that Silent Hill is. Yeah, sorry, I know I'm getting. But anyway, it still reinforces this whole. It's like a theme running through the game, that this a theme of ambiguity, and if you can really trust what you see with your eyes, and maybe it's just your mind playing tricks on you, you know, and everything like that. So the fact that Laura doesn't see any monsters, and that, yeah, well, Silent Hill appears quite normal to her, suggests that the town actually didn't call to her like it did to the three other characters. But that instead she came to Silent Hill to just find Mary, because as you find out in the end of the game, that Laura and Mary had stayed at the same hospital. And the way that James comes to the realization that Mary didn't die 3 years ago is all because in this letter that you get from Laura in the end of the game, towards the end there, it states that I'm sorry. Mary has written in the letter, "Happy 8th birthday, Laura." That's the last thing. And then James asks Laura, like, "How old are you?" You know? And then she says, like, "Yeah, I turned 8 last week." Which shows that Mary died 1 week ago. And the fact of the matter is that she had come home from the hospital because I think the doctors and maybe Mary herself realized that she didn't have much time, and she maybe wanted to say goodbye to James, her husband, and she gets home, and that's when he kills her, and they have this heartfelt talk before he smothers her with the pillow. So it all suggests that it all happened a week ago, before the game begins. And it's just all these little things, and the first time I played it, I didn't pick up on it, to be honest. Perhaps not at all, because I was just so shall we say, intrigued with how how atmospheric it all was, and the look of everything, and the feeling and everything that but I still thought then that the story was really good. It drew me in. It is a story that draws you in, and you want to find out more what happens, and you want to find out just more info, basically. It's the game is really good at telling its story without words. Like there are these very subtle hints throughout the game that like tells you what really happened. Then if you're bright enough, I guess, to pick up on them, that's great. But I wasn't picking up on them the first times I played the game, and I have played it, I think, almost 10 times by now. And it's really it's a story and a game that you can just sit and speculate and talk about and come up with different original, maybe with different theories of your own for stuff that happens in the game, and the characters, and why do they do that and this, and why do they say this and that, and why do they react the way they do, and so forth. And this all ties in with the next topic that I'm going to talk about, and that is the monsters, of course, and Pyramid Head included. So let's begin with the regular monsters then, shall we? Now, the monster design in Silent Hill 2 I find absolutely, it's disgusting. They're disgusting. They're weird, and they're man, how long have I talked? Holy fuck, almost an hour. Oh well. And like I said, they're weird and sickly disturbing and everything like that, but yet they look, and that is probably because they look a bit like, just like disfigured human forms, you know, like, and I think the first encounter with the first monster in the game, I think it's done so well. It works beautifully. Like, granted, when you first go in the wood, when you first go along the wood forest path, you walk in there, and this mist everywhere, you can't see a damn thing, and suddenly all you like here is like something is like running alongside you in the forest, but you can't see anything. You just hear something running. It almost sounds like it's an animal running, but I don't know, I could be wrong, because you don't see it. And there's lots of subtle hints, subtle things throughout the game. Just sounds. You just hear sounds, but you don't see anything. They don't show you anything. And that is usually the most effective way of scaring someone, or to make someone feel this sense of, to make it creepy. You know, that to me is Silent Hill 2 is the most creepy game I've ever played. I believe, yeah, it is the most creepy and most. Granted, the first Silent Hill is probably scarier, a little bit scarier, but Silent Hill 2 has this whole creepy atmosphere that lies over the whole game, and it's just the atmosphere gets so thick you can cut it with a knife. It's that thick. It's just wow, mind-boggling stuff. But anyway, when you finally reach town, and you get to the first crossroad like this, and you see like blood stains on the ground, and you're like, what the fuck? And then there's a little cinematic, and the camera pans from your perspective and zooms around like this, and you see something behind there in the mist, like walking in a strange and disfigured way. It's almost looks like a drunk person, or almost, and you see it just like walking off in the mist. And so at that point the game forces you to follow the monster, basically, because if you try to go another direction, James says, no, I need to check out that thing, I need to follow that thing. So oh well, whatever. Because in all honesty, you pretty much want to follow that shadow, the thing that you saw in the mist, and find out what the fuck was that. So you follow the bloodstains, and they lead to an like an alley, and you walk into the alley, and you come upon a on a road that leads to it's a dead end. It's a dead end, but and that is also where you find the classic radio that every Silent Hill game has, I think, at least the first 3 anyway. You find the radio there also. So you find this radio, and the radio is already like, you know, like that. It's a static noise like it was in the first game. And if you have played the first game, then you probably know what that crackling noise, static noise means. So yeah, gets pretty tense. And James also finds you also find like a regular wooden plank with a nail in it, and then James goes in through these wooden planks that are in the way, and you can see the monster sitting, but this crouching, you know, and it slowly stands up, and then you see it, and you're like, what the fuck, you know? It's just so, pretty much it has, yeah, it looks like a person, but a person that is trapped inside a flesh thing that goes over the head and down to the legs, with its arms trapped inside like this, and it doesn't have any features in the head, like no mouth and no eyes, no nothing. And along its chest is this black like opening. It can actually, it just stands like this and spouts out like black acid, or sprays out black acid at you or something. You're just like, like that. And that's the first monster you encounter. Now, and then later on, a tip: try to avoid cars, because you never know if there's one of those fuckers underneath the cars. Believe me, they can be under the cars and just like, they can be they're super fast almost because they can crawl also along the ground, and then they're super fast, so they could just like crawl into you when you're walking past a car or something, so be wary. Let's see, more monsters. We have the another classic monster, the bobblehead nurses. The bobblehead nurse they're also pretty freaky. Their skin is grey, and it's like you see like rotten flesh or something like that, I think. And they have no hair, and their faces are just like yeah, like it's like their faces have been turned around or something, like this, around their head, but they still have these nurses' hats, I believe they can call them, and at the same time they have these very short skirts, and a very large what's it called in English? The word I'm looking for. They have a large, there's a cleavage. Yeah, cleavage, I believe. So their breasts are very well, yeah, accentuated, something, stuff like that. And I'll go into details later about what the symbolism of the monsters is and all that. And let's see here, more monsters. And you have the let's see, I mentioned I mentioned lying figure, bubble and nurses. Oh yeah, and there's like these little almost insects, like cockroaches, that appears here and there, but they're not that. Basically, you can tell if one of them is nearby by this, like it sounds like it sounds like a yeah, it's like this weird metallic whining sound, I guess you could say. You do actually encounter a room full of those bugs, and the trick with that room is you have a door keypad to the door, but you don't have the fucking code. The only clues you get is that some buttons are like painted, something like that. It looks like they're almost painted over. So that's the ones you need to press. But you have to like stand and press them several times just to figure out the right combination, because you don't have any. You just have to guess. And just surrounded by these fucking bugs. Ugh, I hate that room. Oh, you can take damage in there, I'll tell you that. And you have these like sort of flesh lips. That's a boss actually in the game. When you're at the hospital, you meet them as like a boss. It's a boss fight, and it's basically like a steel frame of a bed, you know, that has like a figure stretched out sort of on it, and they have, the reason they're called flesh lips is because they have like two, yeah, like flesh lips, like two lips where the vagina is of the female. And that yeah, there are very many like sexual undercurrents to the monsters, a lot of sexual things. I'll explain that later. And they're pretty creepy. They can also like shoot out like a tentacle or something and just grab you around the throat and strangle you and whatnot if you're not careful. And so yeah, pretty fucking creepy. And then there's an enemy that you almost well, you don't meet the enemy as often as the others, and you barely see it actually. What was it called? Was it the Mandarin? I don't know exactly, but anyway, it's this monster that, because in some areas you have like a steel grid you're walking on instead of a regular floor or regular ground. Instead you have these steel platforms, and there's just darkness underneath it. And underneath the platforms, these monsters walk like with their hands, and just they're like hanging onto these onto those iron things that you walk on, these platforms. And but that I think it's only 1 or 2 areas in the game where they appear. So I wouldn't be so. That's probably why they are so hard to take notice of, because you don't really see them. You just like hear them, you know. Yeah, you maybe see them, but you see mostly just their hands, you know, that they walk, that they climb with, sort of. So and I don't actually know the the reference or the symbolism of that monster. I don't really know. It could be that could have something to do with like subjugation, I believe, someone who is oppressing another person and forcing this oppressed person to yeah, you know, like stay underneath, underneath, and the oppressor like dominates the oppressed. Yeah, you know how that goes. Maybe that's the kind of symbolism for that particular monster. I'm not really sure about that one, to be honest. Sorry. Let's see, is there any monsters I have forgotten? No, I don't. I think that's all of them. No, excuse me. Oh my god, stupid me. There's two more, of course. There's the mannequin. The mannequin. That's some creepy fucking design right there. I just get goosebumps by talking about them right now. So it's like this mannequin. It's a mannequin body, you know. But imagine like just the legs. Just take the legs, two leg parts, and put them together, and you have the mannequin in the game. Like, they walk their legs, the lower half are legs, and with their regular body up to up to here, down here or something, up here basically, and then the other half, I guess you could call it arms, but I don't know, because they walk like, hold them like this, and they just stand there and they can like hit you with the arms, and they have no head. So what you're left is basically like you had taken two equal body parts and just put them together. No, skip the head and everything. Skip the arms. Just legs to walk with and legs to hit with, you know, legs like arms. And so mannequins are very creepy. And then we have the Abstract Daddy, and the Abstract Daddy is also a boss fight in the game. It is when you encounter Angela, actually, it's actually the encounter before you encounter her the last time, with that burning stare that I was talking about. So the Abstract Daddy could, and since Angela sees the Abstract Daddy as well as James, there's another interesting thing to take note of. Again, it has with the story and the layers and the objective and the point of view and everything like that. So yeah, it's like almost like the Flesh Lips, but the thing with the Abstract Daddy is like, it is like a bed frame again, or a door frame, I don't know, bed frame I would say, but it looks like, and it has small small legs that it walks with, but it doesn't have any, I don't think it have any arms or something, if I remember correctly. And it looks like the body of the monster is designed so that it looks like someone is lying on top of another person. And yeah, it symbolizes probably rape or sexual activity or something like that. It's something to do with the sexual, I think, at least. This again, this sexual undertones that almost all the monsters possess, and the Abstract Daddy has also like these flesh lips that goes like this, but it doesn't, instead of having them, well, because the flesh lips had their mouth where the vagina would be, right? And the Abstract Daddy has more like a little normal head, I believe, that the lips are attached to, you know, so it's like a regular mouth for the Abstract Daddy. And it could be that the Abstract Daddy symbolizes the male sex, while the Flash Lips